society. One day he'll wake up in the present day, a million generations removed from expectations of being who you really want to be. Skating away, skating away, skating away on the thin ice of a new day.
My name is Germain. I'd like to introduce you to the organizers of this event, celebrating Leo's life and legacy. Over here we have Steve Repass, who put together this wonderful slideshow that we're going to do today. And the music, of course, as a shared event, as it would be with Leo's life. Brian Portland, an old friend of Leo's. Not going to go into ages, but I'll just say he's 33, Leo was 58, and Leo was at the province, correct?
He was. You'll find out more later, but yeah.
That's for later on. But right now we're going to have the official presentations. Brian's going to introduce this fellow in the suit. So here we go.
I'd like to officially introduce Dan Larson, the chairman of the Board of Selectmen for the town of Hebron, who's going to present something for Leo. A little surprise for everyone.
Thank you. This one? Okay. Thank you very much. I am proud and honored to represent the town of Hebron, to be a part of the celebration of the life of Leo David Germain, who passed from us at the age of 58 back on November 30th, 2018. Just who was Leo? He experienced apparently a lot of firsts at Camp Hemlocks. First kiss, first girlfriend, first time riding a horse, first time climbing a wall. This was a gentleman that, although some may not think of this as a big deal, it was great for him. He loved this place, and he had some very, very good friends. I will let them talk about it, but just the fact that they spent the time and effort to put this together today in remembrance and honor of him is a testimony to the greatness that this gentleman had. So from the town of Hebron, I'd like to read a proclamation, if I can open it. Town of Hebron proclamation honoring Leo D. Germain for his dedication to Easter seals. Whereas Leo D. Germain was appointed by Governor Jody Rell as a member of Connecticut Council on Developmental Disabilities from September 2006 through 2009, and whereas Leo D. Germain was a member of the Board of Directors for the Easter Seals from 1998 to 2006, whereas Leo was also an ambassador for the Easter Seals from 1998 to 2006, and whereas Leo held a bachelor's degree in social work from Southern Connecticut State University, as well as being a graduate of the Manchester, Connecticut Community College, and whereas Leo was also the owner of Discovery Music Productions, LLC, a disc jockey service for over 20 years, which in itself is an amazing feat. Any business to stay in that for that length of time, that's a great accomplishment. Therefore, we, the Hebron Board of Selectmen, in recognition of Leo's many years of achievements, dedication, and leadership in the Easter Seals and in our community, hereby designate March 16, 2019 as Leo D. Germain Day. And express on behalf of the town of Hebron our sincere admiration for his many accomplishments. Thank you.
Well, I had a few accomplishments, right? Okay. One more. So this comes from the CEO of Easter Seals. I had to contact the Chicago National Office to get this. And they were very nice. So I'm just going to read this, what they wrote. And copies of this exist on the table. Take one. What makes Easter Seals the organization it is today are the individuals who have propelled our mission forward over the last 100 years. These people who hail from every corner of America actively work to eliminate barriers for people with disabilities. They advocate, however, they are able to ensure everyone, regardless of age or ability, is included and empowered. I can think of no one who embodies the spirit of leadership and excellence more than Mr. Leo David Germain. While I have never had the pleasure of meeting Mr. Germain, it is evident through the stories and memories shared by family and friends that he was a person who left an impression on everyone he met through his kindness, compassion, joy, and generosity. Through his own 23 summers at Easter Seals Camp Hemlocks, as both a camper and a camp counselor, he saw firsthand just how important it is for children and adults with disabilities to experience independence and adventures in the great outdoors. Mr. Germain also dedicated himself to the Easter Seals mission by serving as an ambassador and on the board of directors for 8 years. Outside of Easter Seals, he was a member of the Connecticut Council on Development Disabilities. These contributions are significant, and when I consider Mr. Germain's commitment to Easter Seals, I am humbled and grateful. This is from the CEO. The founder of Easter Seals, Germain, said the following: "Your life and mine shall be valued not by what we take, but by what we give." Mr. Germain gave an immeasurable amount of care and compassion to ensure Easter Seals services and our mission continue into the next 100 years and beyond. He will no doubt leave a legacy behind that will inspire others to lead with kindness, enjoy each moment, and pursue their purpose with passion. Regards, Angela F. Williams. Okay, and who is here from Easter Seals? Or Oak Hill as we're known today? Steve, come here. So, let's do something.
I want you to get my good side. Leo's laughing.
So, a lot of this, you're all gathered here because you're mostly Facebook members and you heard it through Facebook or a friend. And we put out a fundraiser there. And it was to cover the cost of our supplies, etc. And a lot of time and effort went in, and our own personal money went into making things happen. But you're very good in donations to this foundation. It still exists out there, you can donate to it. And we have a surplus, and the surplus comes to $700. And we're very proud to present this to Camp Hemlocks. Steve has a few words.
Wow. Yeah, I totally promised myself that I was not going to get emotional today, and so that's not going to happen. Yeah. So I'd like to begin talking a little bit about my experience with Leo. So, at 13 years old, we had moved to another neighborhood, and I noticed this very interesting person walking around, always surrounded by an entourage young kids in the neighborhood, you know, our peers. And he looked me up and down, and I looked him up and down. And I didn't like him much. Number one, he had all the girls in the neighborhood. So we did have a community pool. And one day I had ventured out after living there for a couple weeks, and I walked out to the pool and sat down. And Leo was on the other side with the same entourage. And I sat across and looked at him. And Leo got up from his seat. He walked over to the edge of the pool, and he dove in head first. And when I mean head first, I mean his head hit the water first. He went underwater. He came up. He shot a spout of water out. Got on his back, paddled over to the side of the pool, and said, "Hey, what's up?" 2 weeks later, Leo invited me to a weekend, and he said, they just opened this new camp down in Hebron. It's called Camp Hemlocks. And he goes, would you come down and be my personal care attendant? Of which I knew nothing about, but I instinctively said yes. And that was 43 years ago. We were down here year one. Camp was brand new. That section over there wasn't here. And it was that weekend that I realized what a tour de force of life Leo was. He wasn't happy with our accommodations. He thought they were a little small. We were in one of the regular rooms down here. So Leo and I hatched a plan to take over the recreation hall down at the end of the building. You'll all take a tour of this place when we're all done and check this place out. It's pretty amazing. So we took over the entire room down there, complete with a fireplace, the whole thing. We set up mattresses, we moved beds down there. We didn't ask anybody if we could do this. We just did it. And nobody questioned Leo once. It was an amazing weekend. Another thing I remember about that weekend was our ride down here. So Phyllis drove, that's Leo's mother, for those of you who don't know who she was. She was an amazing goddess of a woman who created an amazing human being in life, as well as several others. The thing I remember most was I was sitting in the back of the Buick, and Phyllis and Leo were in the front, and they were about the same height. And Phyllis had her arm draped over the steering wheel, cigarette in her hand. And we were on our way past Gay City State Park out here. And the thing that Phyllis was confused about was she saw the Route 85 sign and thought that was the speed limit. Phyllis drove like a confident state trooper. Yeah. This was interesting because this characteristic carried over into Leo's driving as well. When I think back of when I met Leo, he had gone through quite a bit by the time I had known him. And I had no idea what it was. And some of it's represented in the pictures up here. If you knew three things about Leo, you knew he was the quintessential Giants fan. He was the single most important Jethro Tull fan. And he broke his arm 19 times. Some of the photos you'll see up here, Leo will be in a cast. Leo was amazing in his self-protection skills. He learned how to fall like nobody I had ever seen. And I saw him fall a lot. I was telling a story earlier, the opening night of Star Wars. Some of you might know Leo was a little bit into science fiction, and a wee bit. Yeah. So we walked down to the Manchester Parkade. My brother Christopher, also a dear, dear friend of Leo, and myself. There was about 20 people in the theater opening night of Star Wars. For real. We walked out and Leo said, I think this is going to catch on. And it did.
when you know someone like Leo for as long as I've had, and you start thinking about the subtle impacts that a person has on your life, I can list several things that Leo gave me. One was that any time I ever started to feel sorry for myself, and we all have those moments, there was a flood of thoughts of the things I had seen Leo overcome on a day-to-day basis that didn't seem to faze him in the least. Phyllis raised a tough kid. And when I mean tough, I mean tough. He was fiercely independent. He lived out loud. He was the first celebrity I ever knew. You couldn't go anywhere with Leo and not run into somebody he knew. And he did amazing things for my own personal social life. I didn't have one before Leo. So to illustrate what a celebrity Leo was, and an adventurer, Leo went on adventures. He was game for everything. My friend Scott and I were camping with Leo and Irene, and Leo wanted to go tubing behind one of the guys had a speedboat there. So there's two funny parts about this. The first funny part is Scott and I trying to get Leo into the tube. That took nearly half an hour. Because the way Leo was built, we would get him in and we couldn't align him, and over he would go. And over he would go. And over he would go. And we finally found the sweet spot. So we got all Leo hooked up to the tube, and off we went. And Leo is doing great. He's in the back bouncing around. Remember, Leo couldn't hold on. And he's bouncing around behind the boat in the tube, and he's yelling something at us. And we're all looking at him like, he wants to go faster. So Larry laid down the throttle on the boat, and off we went. And we're just enjoying watching Leo behind the boat, bouncing up and down. He was in the tube most of the time. And then as the boat started to turn, Leo kicked out to the side, and there he went. He skipped across the water about 15 or 20 times before going ass over tea kettle. Oh crap, we killed Leo. We spun the boat around, we sped back. Leo's in there. He's wearing a life jacket, of course, because, we didn't want to preserve Leo. And he just smiled, he looked at us, and he goes, hey, can we do that again? I think I got it this time. That happened. Yeah. Another thing, Leo and I went camping often. Leo was always good for a road trip. We took hundreds of road trips, maybe thousands of road trips. But one of them, we went up to New Hampshire, we went up to the White Mountains, and Leo, he's like, let's go to the top of Mount Washington. I'm like, yeah, I don't think my car's going to make it. Because we drove cars back then that we, fixed along the way. So we decided to go up the Cog Railroad to the top of Mount Washington. So if you remember Leo, he was able to accommodate areas that were not set up for accessibility. And he managed to sit down and scooch his butt, how he used to go upstairs, onto the Cog Railroad. We got him up, we got him in a seat, and we were good to go. We went to the top of the mountain, we got off. Beautiful day, we're standing up there. There's a photo up here I took of Leo from a distance. He's sitting on the top of Mount Washington. But this is how I knew Leo was a celebrity. We walk into the gift shop on the top of Mount Washington, 6,280 feet above sea level, and a young woman jumps out from behind the concession stand, screams Leo's name, and practically tackles him. Where could you go with Leo and not know somebody? That was pretty amazing. Leo taught me humility. He taught me diversity. Leo's group of friends was remarkable. And I've spoken to people who have met Leo once and remember him for the rest of their lives. My neighbor the other day told me he had substitute taught at Illing Junior High School one time, and he remembered Leo as if he had seen him last week, and started describing all these things about Leo and how amazing he was. I miss Leo like crazy. I was told a few people on my way home from work, there's been at least 3 occasions where I've just driven over to Leo's house and then remembered. I've picked up the phone several times. The one thing I do have from Leo is I have his eternal voice in my head. I spent so much time with Leo, as many of you did, that I know exactly how he would respond to things. He had some brilliant one-liners that he got a lot of mileage out of. One of my favorites was, anytime I was assisting Leo with something or doing something or whatever, I would drop something, I would trip over something, I would fumble something, and Leo would look at me like he did so many of us, shake his head and say, "You able-bodied people." If I couldn't remember something, and the thought had eluded me in some way, Leo would lean in with a concerned look, fold his arms, and say, "Space, the final frontier." These are the memories of Steve Repass. They're not accessible at this time. He said that to a lot of people. Lee was loved by so many people. He had so many amazing people in his life too. One of them is Violet, his wife. The night Leo passed, Violet and I cried together on the phone for over an hour and a half. We didn't say much. We just heard each other on the other end. It was in shock and disbelief. Leo was married right here. There's many of us in this room right now who stood in this room and watched Leo get married. Yeah, it was just an amazing thing. They had a great life together, and even after their marriage ended, Violet remained a very close friend of Leo right up until the end. And after his passing has been absolutely instrumental in putting all of this together from 2,000 miles away. I would like to read a couple things that Violet had put together. There's a full transcript of this out on the table out there. It's about 21 pages long, but I just want to read a couple things from it that really kind of speak to Leo. So Violet put together many of their experiences, and there's one that really stands out to me here. Yeah, like how well. This is how things go at camp. Okay. He always loved the ladies. And there was nobody who was as smooth, suave, and debonair as Leo D. Germain. He consistently would ask people for 2 things. One was, "Hi, my name is Leo Germain. I represent Easter Seals. Would you like to make a donation?" And the other was, "Would you like to adopt?" Leo was adopted by hundreds of people over the years. I'm being a huge fan. Huge. This is Leo, Violet's writing. Okay. So, in an earlier thing she wrote, her and Leo were at a Blockbuster video. And Leo was always looked at by children as someone to go up and talk to. Children were not afraid of Leo. Children loved Leo. So while they were at a Blockbuster Video, these two little kids were staring at Leo. So Leo went over and had a lovely conversation with them about, who he was and all of that. And then they went about their way. A few months later, maybe even 6 months later, we were grocery shopping at Stop and Shop in Manchester when we ran into Dee Snider of Twisted Sister fame. Leo just needs to go talk to him, Violet writes. I didn't. Some celebs don't like it, and it's always kind of struck me as rude to just go all fanish on someone who's just out trying to live their normal, non-working at the moment lives. Leo comes back, blown away at running into him. Of all places, our grocery store. We're going down the aisle, a few over, when Dee comes running around the corner with his carriage and a couple of kids. He yells, "Hey, I know who you are. You're the guy from the video store who said God bless you to my kid when he sneezed. He told me all about you." Talk about going all celeb vanish on someone. Credit to Dee that he listens to his kids and he really appreciates diversity and courtesy. He made Leo's day. Violet writes about her life with Leo and the kids. Life was normal. Lives like anyone else's. We had ups and downs, good and bad. We got some right, we got some wrong. Throughout it all, we had a great, good time. We made memories I cherish. We kept a friendship in spite of splitting, and we also kept a love for each other. I learned a lot from Leo, appreciating good music, the joy of cooking with someone in the kitchen, how to have enough patience, accepting people as they are and not as you would like them to be, valuing good friendships no matter what, and living more in the moment were all gifts that he gave me. He was one of a kind and there will never be another like him. All kidding aside, Leo made it all easy. Easy to accept our differences, easy to understand everyone has abilities, easy to love, and easy to laugh with. He shared like no other I have ever met. He knew how to appreciate the small things and the big things in equal measure. He lived in the moment, and he was my friend. All my love, Leo, rest in peace, and I'll see you on the other side someday. And that was from Violet. So, I'll come back and close things up for you guys, but I want to open up the microphone to anyone who would like to come up and have a conversation about maybe your experiences with Leo. So public speaking is the most horrifying thing for humans to do. I know I do it regularly. But this is different because there's nothing but love in the room here. Would anybody like to start off with sharing an experience of Leo? Yeah, so this is where I get into my professional mode and I start sticking microphones in people's faces. Oh my goodness. Oh, here comes somebody. So, this is Leo's dear friend Lynette, and you can use the mic or use that, whichever you choose.
I did not promise that I won't get emotional today, so bear with me. I met Leo at Southern, and so we knew each other over 30 years, went to college together, and had many adventures, many road trips, and his voice is with me. That was a great way to put it. Every minute of every day, the music on the radio, the jokes on the television. Yes, I'm not going to get through this, I'm sorry. yesterday. I live in Binghamton, it's about 4 hours away. I came up yesterday just to kind of plug into some of the spaces that Leo and I used to share. And I went to Wickham Park in Hartford, which was closed, damn it. But a very nice mailman told me that you could park there and climb up the hill and you could still do it. But I got to the top of the hill and Leo gave me a beautiful sunset yesterday. It was amazing. And the longer I sat there, the prettier it got. The more pictures I took on my phone that doesn't take good pictures. It was just another wonderful way to plug in the Leo. He wrote me a poem back in college, which is what I'm fumbling with here. And I don't know that I need to read the whole thing, but it's called Elastic Memories. The experience of keeping each other alive generates memories. And he goes on to say, memories generate us. Whenever I feel the need for Pink Floyd, I'll live in a memory. Whenever I take a picture, I'll live in a memory. Whenever I draw on life, I'll live in a memory. And this was the part yesterday that I was walking around with. The experience of giving each other memories generates life. Thank you for giving me life. And for me, that's, man, Leo, there's so much of you that I carry around with me as I visit these spaces. And thank you to everybody that pulled us together.
Leo was a very good writer, it was something that he was passionate about in addition to reading. Nobody could read a book faster than Leo. I would watch him devour 1,000. He read Dune in 3 days. It's this thick. He could remember a book that he read 35 years ago and tell you the characters and the plot and what was important about that book. He was a huge fan of Stephen Baxter. He was a huge fan of Stephen King. And he had an extensive library of science fiction like nobody else I knew, as well as an incredible musical love. There's people in this room right now who have been to some great concerts with Leo. I know I've probably been to 80, 90 concerts with Leo. One great story was myself, Tommy Riley, Leo, and Mark Baines was at this concert. We were there to see Roger Waters, and he was doing Dark Side of the Moon. And one of the things that they did was they brought a giant inflatable pig with graffiti all over it. It took like 6 guys to hold on to this thing, filled with helium. It was huge. And Mark had a nice spot. He was down in front of the soundboard in the sweet spot, and we were up on the hill at the Meadows. You got us in. And so they came around through the crowd carrying this giant inflatable pig. So as we were sitting there, they came right past us, and as God is my witness, Leo is sitting there, and the foot of the pig hit Leo in the head and knocked him literally over, and he started rolling down the hill. It gets better. We rush down, we pick Leo up, we get him up again, and we look to the left, and 3 of the guys holding onto the balloon lost their grip. 2 of them let go. The last guy was getting pulled up off the ground. He let go. We sat there as this giant pig floated off into space. We found out the next day they had to divert air traffic control over Bradley because this giant pig flew right over the airport. This happened. And then finally deflated and landed somewhere up in the Berkshires. Everything was an experience with Leo. It really was. He was fine. He actually reveled in telling the story. It was something more for him to talk about. So anyway, so this is kind of organic, and anybody else would like to come on up and have a conversation?
We're all family here, so please.
We can either pass the mic to you sitting down if you like. Doesn't matter.
Okay, yeah. Okay, she's gonna be back. Good plan, good plan.
So I just wanted to say, so I'll speak for my mom too, because she's out there. I know Leo through my mom, but both of my parents went to high school with him. So I've known him all my life. And I actually was introduced to Easter Seals through him. I used to be a roadie for his DJing business when I was in high school. So I would schlep all this giant speakers around and we'd come here and he'd want to, we'd argue over who's gonna play the first song, is it gonna be Jethro Tull? And I was 15, I didn't want it to be Jethro Tull. So we would argue back and forth. Sometimes I won, sometimes he won. So I just am happy to say, after a while of being separated, not being separated, but not seeing him for a long time, within the last year, my parents were reconnected with him, and he got to meet my kids for the first time not that long ago. So I was really excited for them to meet him because, everyone said, he was just a celebrity. And he was so easy to get along with. And when I was growing up, he used to make the dolphin sound. I don't know if anyone ever has heard that before, if it was just a kid thing. But he knew I loved it. And so it was anytime he saw me, he would make it. And he's going to be missed by our whole family, just because we knew him as we were growing up.
Yeah, Leo definitely got to know our kids. He knew my sons. One of the things that Leo and my son and I used to do for Leo on Christmas Eve was we would pop over there and we would typically get him something science fiction. And we would surprise him on Christmas Eve. We'd go in, gave me the opportunity to teach my kids that, you know what, this is what's important in life. This is what's important in life. So, were you going to say something? I was. Come on. Come on, Mickey. All right, I know. So everybody, this is Leo's sister, Mickey.
I didn't know Leo in the capacity all knew Leo as, because unfortunately I was his sister. And in those pictures, there is Leo's first walker. Someone had to make it, and so it was square. They couldn't tip over. And then they had to rub pieces around it because he didn't care what he bashed into. But the street that we lived on when we first got that walker was Rich Street, which goes down in Manchester, which was for you.
Yep.
Way for you.
Wait for you.
And Mom and Dad weren't thinking clearly. They left me outside alone with Leo. So, you know what's coming, don't you? He had his shoes on. So my job was to push him back up the hill after I let him go for him to go down the hill. But it wasn't on the sidewalk, it was down the middle of the street. But he lived, you all met him. But he was, as you said, very loving and caring and funny when I wasn't trying to kill him. But when the years went by and then he was living with Mom in the same complex, this young man I nicknamed as, I'm sorry, I have to do it. This was Body Beautiful. This is payback for asking me to come up. And where's your son? Remember that. Body Beautiful. You have to tease him forever now. But he's right. We would go out and play around in the swimming pool, and Leo would lay out there and get his sunburn and suntan, and Leo was very rarely alone out on that deck, but he was pretty cool. I've got to admit, he lived a life very full with a lot of the people that are in here. So for him, I thank you, and I am so
No. After Leo's sister spoke, I was thinking about, they say behind every good man there's a woman, and I think that's for business or politics or what have you. But I think so much should be attributed to Phyllis's phenomenal mothership.
Yeah, she was the mothership.
Daddy would be proud, but I just coined it. But how old was he when he didn't have his dad?
Oh, we were young.
But nice.
Yeah, he was
Well,
very young. I was 13, so he was 6.
yeah. So he knew his father. I always think the father is incredibly important. But throughout life, because of my children, Leo was one of mine, and I was with others. And the very first time, I don't want to be late, the very first time he came to my house, I was so nervous because I hadn't met him, and I knew he was my children's friend, and that he loved spaghetti, so I had to make spaghetti. I was nervous. And he wouldn't like it, you know, it's like, who's this person that I have to, you know, and I was nervous because I didn't want to make him uncomfortable.
No, that would never happen.
Never happened. So, we have a history, and he's always in my heart.
Leo shares the Riley family, each and every one of them. Yeah, absolutely. This is Thomas Riley.
Thomas, I'm in trouble.
Keep it clean.
Yeah. Well, on that, just Mom brought that occasion up. I think it was the meatballs that you made on that spaghetti dinner that kept him coming back. And my pretty sisters, Jennifer and Mary, I got to meet him because he was Jenny's friend. I think he wasn't my friend at that point yet. And unlike you, I did like him the first time I saw him. And I don't know if it was the first night, maybe it was the second time he came to dinner, and it was often. And I think it was mostly for the spaghetti and meatball. My mother does make the best meatballs. So. And I got to feed him. That was a kind of a special treat for me. You guys did a heck of a lot more than me out there. For me, that was a tremendous honor. And speaking of an honor, we lost, how long was it, 4 months, 3 months? I was recently at the main pub, and I met a man who was in a wheelchair. And I think this was before Leo passed. And I couldn't hear him, so I sat down on the footstool where you put your feet up at the bar. And we talked for about 20 minutes, half an hour maybe. And I got ready to leave, and I said, you know, I like to help people. If there's anything I could ever do to help you, let me know. I'll give you my phone number. And he said, what do you do? I said, I'm an auctioneer. And he said, well, I'm putting on an auction for spinal cord injuries. I went and did this auction for him. And it turns out, long story short, it was a pretty good success. And that Leo was the DJ at their wedding, and I got to sit at their table. And this only all came out at the end. And when I found out about that connection, I thought, my boy Leo, he put us together. I lost a friend. Never really. He's always there. But I kind of maybe gained a new friend, I'm hoping, with that same connection, and they loved Leo, and I did invite them too. So, who's next? This is the best friend that anybody could ever have in life, right there.
To be perfectly true, I don't know Leo as
it's plenty time. I've been through a lot in my life. I have a titanium shoulder and all sorts of crazy injuries. So life has been a little bit hard for me. This guy doesn't bend or anything like that. When I first had and I'll make this quick, but when I first had my accident, I really was depressed. I was at Gaylord Rehabilitation Center and I wanted to kill myself. I was like, this is not cool. I can't live like this. I met a quadriplegic or two that were teenagers my age, and they made me realize really quick, like calling me an idiot, by the way, because I was carrying on like a 4-year-old and I was mad that I got injured, you know? And here this guy Al can't do anything but use his chin to get around, you know, quadriplegic. Through my years, I've learned to always, and my wife and I talk about it, I have to be grateful that I'm here. I look fairly normal. I have a lot of injuries, I have a lot of pain, but I've always been able to kind of live a normal life. Through my years, I've met people that have reminded me to be grateful. I'm referring, oh, sorry, can you guys not hear me? I'm referring to people like Leo. Leo just reminded me of, man, you know, do what you can do with what you have at that particular moment in time. And don't forget that. Be grateful. Do what you can. Do what you can do with the time that you have. You know, we all have our own little impairments. We all have our own little struggles. You know, some of us have more than others. Remember that Leo made me when I had to have a shoulder surgery. I had a replacement done, shoulder replacement, and I barely knew Leo. Mickey brought me over to his house. He made me every Jethro Tull CD, burn every single one of them. Now I have this massive Tull plan. Leo and I had something in common. We were big Tull fans. I've been to see Tull many times, and about 4 or 5 of the times I went there, I would see Leo there. So that was he's my brother in Tull, and I'll never forget what I keep learning from Leo every day and reminding myself and all of you guys, just be grateful.
Leo loved football. Leo was a master of football. Through Madden, in its various incarnations, Leo went to the Super Bowl no less than half a dozen times. But the greatest play came on Homestead Street when we were kids. We were all out playing football in the backyard. My brother Christopher was the quarterback, and Leo went for the bomb. So nobody ever covered Leo, and the rule was if you hit Leo with the football, that counted as a catch. So wherever Leo was, if we could drill a football at his head, that was a touchdown. So the game was in the throes of the last quarter. My brother goes back to pass. Drops the bomb out there. Leo's standing in the end zone. He lines himself up to get hit in the face with the football. It missed. Stuck in his arm in a fair catch, and he turned around and ran in for a touchdown and spiked the football. There was probably about 10 of us laying on the ground, hysterically laughing and cheering Leo for this incredible success that he had. Leo had some pretty amazing friends in his life. We've known about that. One of them was his dear friend John Lupacino. They knew each other from when they were literally babies. They've been friends for almost 60 years. There's a picture up here of Leo. You might have seen it cycle through. Leo and John, and they're dressed up as Kiss. Yes, that is one of my favorite pictures. Absolutely. So Leo loved John with all his heart. They were lifelong friends, and they had a connection that even I didn't have with him. And that's John right here. This guy here. Absolutely. Great to see you, brother. Great to see you. So, is there anybody else who'd like to take a shot at the mic? Oh, yeah, here we go. Now it's answering again. Yeah, you just played it. Yeah.
You might gather enough notes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now, hold on, who's that?
Okay. You might have gathered I'm not as good as speeches as Steve, but that's his view. And I'm not as brave as the first time. So thank you for paving the way for me. Mum and Stop, you've told me who I am. My name is Aaron. I'm Scottish. I live in Germany. I met Leo 4 years ago when Max father died. I met her at the funeral. And sat next to Leo. We shared some food. We had a few jokes and copious amounts of pina coladas. So when Mark said, I'm going to Leo's on Sunday, do you want to come with me? He didn't need to ask twice. Leo and I got on like a house on fire. I know he has quite a few hobbies: football, books, music, science fiction, particularly Star Wars. One Christmas, Santa came to Leo with a Millennium Falcon. Mark very kindly put it together. Took him hours. There were loads of stickers. I don't know who had the most fun, Leo or Mark. On my last visit here, I brought Audie toilet for Leo, and I asked Mark, please, when you come here on Sunday, spray some intergalactical magic for Leo. And he did. Leo was a very, very intelligent man. He had a huge vocabulary, more than 10,000 words, which is more than most people have. However, there are a few words that were never in his vocabulary. I never heard a complaint. I never heard words with a negative connotation. No can't, no, never. He did everything. Nothing ever stopped him. There was, however, one word in his vocabulary which most of us don't have, and that is acceptance. He accepted his lot. And even though life wasn't particularly nice to Leo, it never stopped him doing anything he wanted to. And we could all take a leaf out of his book. He was an optimist. The glass was half full. And whenever he had the chance, it would be completely full. He did lots of things. He had a job, he had a wife, he could drive a car, and he was a dab hand with a PC. He knew about more things on his little thumb than I ever knew about a PC in my entire body. He could do anything with it. He must have been a very special man because he made a huge impression on me. I've heard that from other people. But such a huge impression, I've made a round trip of 7,000 miles just to be here today. I say thank you to Leo. My husband will tell you I'm not usually lost for words, but I am today. So I'd like to finish off with one thing that was a little hiccup, but I'm not mentioning that anymore. I would like to play a little song. I'll not play it all, but I will play most of it, because Human League have managed to write down the music much better than I could ever say. And I would ask all of you, please close your eyes, think of Leo, and we will all be together in electric dreams. I'm going to play that song, and if you don't mind, I'm going to sit down and close my eyes.
understand. Leo wasn't afraid of anything. Well, that's not true. Leo loved people, and Leo loved animals. Leo had several pets. His beloved dog Max, Jamie, Heather, Angel, Beaker. We love Beaker. There's Beaker. Yeah, he always managed to show up at the right time.
Yes, he did.
Leo was, however, afraid of bugs. And one afternoon we were sitting outside and a dragonfly landed on Leo's forehead. I'm not a big fan of bugs either. He was terror-stricken. He looked at me and said, "Get it off me, get it off me," and made several attempts to try to knock it off himself. It would not leave. I was not about to reach out and touch this thing. It was the size of a red-tailed hawk sitting on Leo's face. Leo's like, "Dude, get this off me, get this off me." I said, "Listen, if he takes off with you, I'll grab onto your leg. There's no way he can lift both of us." Eventually the dragonfly left.
Did you at least try to shoo it off?
No. There's a certain masochistic joy of watching Leo squirm from time to time.
It's so rare.
It's so rare. It never happened. It was something to see. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So is there anybody else who'd like to come on up? Yeah. Come on. So this is Manny. This is a college friend of Leo's and someone that he loved very much.
Thanks. Tell you about the first time I met Leo. Walking across the campus, and at the time I worked for the campus police. You know, we had an escort service. Not that kind of escort service. Different kind of escort service. At the time, New Haven was a little hairy, so you walked people back and forth. So I'm walking across, and it was right between classes, right in front of the library. There's tons and tons of people, and everybody's migrating over towards the dorms. And all of a sudden I see like the parting of the sea. And all these people just walking around. Something's going on. It's like on the highway when someone broke down. And it was Leo, broke down. Wheelchair, battery's gone. So he's sitting there, and I walk up and I'm like, "Need a jump?" And he goes, "Well, I could just a push would be great." So I said, "All right." I said, "Where are you? What dorm?" So we start walking along, and I'm pushing him. And I said, "Hey, why don't we take the stairs? It's a shortcut." So we started, and Leo, laughing as he did, says, "We can't go down the stairs." I'm like, so from that point on, walking over, we slowly introduced ourselves. And we found we had all kind of a lot in common, even though I was a jock, and he wasn't. So we got him back to his dorm, got his battery plugged in, head on my way, and he goes, "Where are you? What dorm are you in?" I said, "I'm in Schwartz, I'm in 309. He goes, "Oh, okay." So next afternoon, sitting in my room, probably not studying, but I hear this god-awful bang at the door, like 3 times. Like, what the hell is this? So I walked, opened the door. It's Leo, and he's banging the chair against the door because it's the only way he could knock. So he looks up at me, "Want to go party?" He goes, I gotta reward you for helping me out yesterday." And I'm like, okay. So from that point forward, we became very, very close friends. And as Steve will tell, I'm probably one of the few people in this world that he would actually give himself to and let be picked up. We had a little thing, we'd go swimming, and Leo was a porpoise. And he would hit the water, and he'd come up. But his biggest problem was, once he got onto the deck, was to be able to stand up. Well, we devised a system, and it was really simple. All he had to do was just stiffen up, and I would just lift him up, and mostly by the back of his neck. And people used to look at us like, "You're gonna hurt him," and Leo would just laugh. And the little kids over at the community pool, that's all they wanted to do. One, they wanted to see me throw Leo in the pool. And the other one, they wanted to see Leo get up. So, and again, many stories about Leo's independence. And Lynette will tell you this was probably one of the best when Leo got his car. Now, when he first got it, it wasn't converted. So it was just the gas and the brake, regular steering wheel like the rest of us. I want to go drive. I want to go drive. So Leo would work the gas and brake. I'd sit in the passenger seat, and we'd drive. And we'd drive around Manchester. And what if we get pulled over? What are they going to do? Write me a ticket? And he says, I know everybody. Well, we won't get that. So I got a Massachusetts license, driving on the wrong side of the car with somebody who doesn't have a license at all. What could go wrong? And his mother, we would have to sneak. I would drive the car out. We're going for a ride. And as soon as we get out of range, we'd switch. Well, she found out. And I think it was probably the first time I ever saw her angry. Yeah, oh yeah. And she didn't say anything to him. She laid into me. And my response was, how can you say no? How can you say? So she would let it slide. But Leo and I, went on a lot of adventures. Probably, I would say, one of his biggest regrets about with the car, he's always wanted to drive up to Massachusetts and visit. But the biggest obstacle was the tolls. And we were talking today. Today, not a problem. Speed pass, you could have done it. So, it was kind of a, we talk about this, we were talking earlier, when we get families and other things take part in our life, we lose contact with some of the people that we had our closest connections with. And it happened to me and Leo. Married, kids, the whole deal, you lose contact. And biggest smile I ever got, I think probably in like the last 10 years, when I got my Facebook request from Leo. Because we reconnected. And I think we probably chatted that first night 3-4 hours, just trying to catch up on 20-something years of no contact. But, so that, to me, is probably the biggest regret I have is, Lynette has been probably one of the best friends Leo's ever had, and I had made plans, wanted to go see him when he was in rehab, and, those family things come in, and I never made it, and to me, I was sad, because I really wanted to see him before he left. So, but Leo being who Leo was, that's not his way. He wanted everybody laughing, smiling. He just didn't believe in tears. He just didn't. Only tears he wanted is because you were laughing too hard, not because you were crying. So, think of him that way always, as I think most of us do, because just that laugh and that smirk, you can't help but smile.
Leo was, I keep saying Leo was. I don't want to say Leo was. Leo is one of those rare people on earth who transcends the usual things that slow us down. I was pulled over with Leo once in his vehicle. You find out what you're made out of when you're sitting in the passenger seat beside someone driving them. But then you find out who you are when you're sitting in the passenger seat of somebody who's driving you and doesn't have a steering wheel in front of them. So we got pulled over going 85 one time. I think we were in Manchester on a side street. And Leo pulled over and said, just act casual. And let me do the talking. So I sat there and stared straight ahead. And the officer said, "Do you realize how fast you were going?" And Leo said, "No. I had no idea." "Oh my God, officer, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize it." That officer didn't hear a single word Leo said because he was staring into the car, saw no steering wheel, and all the equipment that surrounded Leo in his van. And he looked over at me, I smiled, trying to act casual, and said, "Okay, just slow it down, sir." And we walked away, and he walked away. Leo got us several tickets that way. That was just the time I was with him. One time I was with Leo and Tommy, and we had gone into the Riley's business, and we walked into the back, and Senior Riley walked up, and there's the three of us going in, walking in, we're laughing and carrying on. And Mr. Riley looks at me and he says, "You know, Steve, you seem like a reasonably intelligent person. What are you doing with these two?" And Leo said, "He's our ride." He let me off the hook all the time. Oh, yeah. So they had a family reunion a few years ago. They got all the Germains and the Brodskys together, and it was one of those events that Leo talked about for months after it happened. Leo loved his family. They played a huge role in who he was. Now we throw the term around, dignity and risk. Well, Leo was allowed to have that risk. He was allowed to roll down a street in a walker. He was allowed to drive a car. Or I shouldn't say he was allowed to. He just decided to. Yeah. Leo took dignity and risk and ran with it. Literally, he ran with it. Is there anybody else who'd like to share anything else? This is Dwight Hahn, Leo's lifelong great friend.
Thanks. So, I met Leo in 7th grade. We didn't go to the same elementary school, and we started junior high in 7th grade. And I was on the side of, here's a cool kid. And he was walking at the time. Something happened, and he needed to be in a wheelchair. I don't know if he'd had surgery or what around 7th grade, but somehow I got the honor to be his aide and pushed him to class, pushed him everywhere for 3 years. Actually, it was probably into high school, but like many of you, he got me involved with Camp Hemlocks. I worked here as a volunteer. A number of weekend retreats, and then worked one summer as a, I guess we were paid a little bit, but it wasn't because of the money, it was the joy of seeing and helping so many of these Easter Seals families. And it was not just kids, it was families, because think about it, it's the relief that family gets for a week or several weeks, where for a break that they long for to be able to push through the disability that, really attacks every day they have, But that wasn't a disability to Leo. Leo took it as, like you said, he could handle whatever. The image he gives of him diving into a pool just cracks me up, because he had no fear of drowning. Why not? I was a great swimmer, and I loved swimming with Leo. And like he said about getting up, you just had to slide along the floor up against the wall and grab him by the neck and pop him up. And he was cool with that. It's a miracle he never fell and crashed his head off. Absolutely amazing. He didn't, rolling down the hill. I can picture it. And he loved it. It was like, okay, it's my lot, what's the 19th broken arm, right? He had a cast all the time. But being able to help him, help him eat. We all know he could eat. I was his health advocate. I always was bugging him not to keep gaining weight and trying to care for himself. And it brings me joy to think of how many years he had that he didn't think he was going to have. His doctors told him when he was really little, I don't know, you could probably give the exact number. Was it 16 or was it?
Well, at first it was not at all.
He wasn't going to make it.
Right.
And then
he endured all those surgeries because they said he'd never walk, and as you all know, he did. So, yeah.
But it was like they said you won't live past 16. And as we graduated high school together, he was like, kick that one. He was not going to take no. And then a fuller life than many of us have, right? So that's the joy that he brought people like John and me and Tom and Steve and Mark and many of you that just have so many great memories. We disconnected at college, but had phone calls now and then. And I think the one thing he didn't get to do that he really wanted to do was to be a radio guy. I listened to somebody like Ray Dunaway on the radio or anybody on these rock stations. He would have died to get that job. And he went to the Connecticut School of Broadcasting, which was not on that list, but it was another thing he did. He graduated from the Connecticut School of Broadcasting and no one would give him a job. That was a bummer, because he would have been awesome on the radio. Right? And the whole football thing, I would have loved to have taken him. We were going to go to the Giants one more time, and that was maybe going to be this year. So I'm sad to say we didn't get to do that, but now he's in a better place, and we'll miss him. Thanks for coming today.
That's Leo in an airplane. Leo loved aviation. His Uncle Hank, who he worshipped the ground that Uncle Hank walked on, fighter pilot, Vietnam, Air Force test pilot, big deal, a very big deal. And he took Leo flying, which was pretty awesome. Leo had flown before, but he said he'd never flown in a tissue box before. They were in a very, very small two-person plane, and he took Leo for a flight that Leo would remember for the rest of his life. Leo was a compassionate soul, and so many people, in so many quiet ways, benefited from Leo's wisdom, his understanding, his support, his love, his experience, his willingness to share. So I'd like to introduce to you a very dear friend of Leo's, Brian Borkland. Brian, if we talked about this earlier, if you were at Leo's house, or if you called Leo's house, let's put it this way, you were on speakerphone. So whoever was there was hearing the whole conversation. And I was there many times when people would call and they would, and Leo would go right into his supportive role. He would know the right things to say, have the right things to say, and he could take a difficult situation and lighten it up a little bit. So I'd like to introduce you to Leo's very good friend, Brian. Brian's responsible for so many things happening down here tonight, including the videotaping of this event. So here's Brian.
It's going to turn into comedy hour now. Let's start by just, many of you have referred to Leo as Leo. I can't think of any better way to describe him other than Dad. He never had biological children of his own. And believe it or not, I knew more about these two sitting next to me before they ever knew about me. Mark and I just met in, December? And, I heard so much about those damn hamburgers on Sundays before the Giants game. And, Nikki, God, I've heard so many stories over the years, some of them I can't even say. Yeah. I met Leo here in 1997. He was actually DJing right out front as I was being checked in. And I was a stubborn teenager. Nowhere near as nice as I am now. And first thought in my head was, God, at least I look better than him. But then I thought about it and going, he's got the cachet of, say, Freddie Mercury, Ron Germain, I mean, whoever you want to name, he had it. He got my first girlfriend for me. He was a better wingman than I was a better man, period. You know, I still live in Massachusetts, but you never know the distance between the two of us, because I call every Sunday, whether I wanted to hear about the Giants or not, I still heard about it. You know, every Tuesday, every Thursday, like I said, you know, these guys have heard my voice, like the voice of God, you know, before I even knew, you know, who they physically were. And I promised myself I wasn't going to get emotional today, but hell, that ain't going to happen. And, you know, I woke up this morning, and as if this isn't him trying to send a message, I got a notification on my phone, I think it was last night, that I had a reminder to meet him down here this weekend and have St. Patrick's Day festivities, because every time I'd say to him, let me come to the apartment, he'd go, dude, the apartment's not big enough for two assholes like us. And he goes, we're gonna raise hell. Let's go back to camp and raise hell there. And that's basically how it happened. And then this morning, I'm driving in here, we're driving down Jones Street, and Grand Funk Railroad, closer to my home, comes on the radio. And for those of you that don't know, this place was my home. I got engaged here 3 times. None of them worked out. I was even dumb enough to go back for seconds with one of them. But, you know, Leo said, you learn, you live, you love, and you live again. But, yeah, I guess, you know, when I was putting this whole thing together with these guys up here, there was a letter that I wrote in support of this whole thing. And I think it was the last line. I said, for a guy that couldn't even use his arms, he sure as hell touched a lot of people. And the things that begin to describe the number of people that he touched. And I'd be doing him a disservice if I didn't say, you know, Dad, you were a stubborn fool. I still look better than you. But, thank you. Just, I love you, Leo. I haven't been back here in 10 years, by the way, so I never thought I'd be standing here for this, but it still smells the same. The cabins, God only hopes they cleaned them. You know, but Steve, Mark, everybody here, like, we're all feeling it. And he's up there doing something. And, you know, one last thing. Steve mentioned Madden before. Leo was disgustingly competitive. And half the time we talked, it was about Madden, or we competed against each other. And yes, Dad, I will admit, finally, it ended with you 2-1 against me because of a stupid field goal, because of a glitch in the controller. But whenever he was going through the seasons and going to the Super Bowl, he'd always call me when he got to Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. He says, I can't beat Aaron Rodgers. I said, just blitz him up the middle. He's too old and he can't move. And I said, or you could be the Patriots and just beat everybody. And he goes, I'd rather fall asleep on my head than be the Patriots. So, yeah, I guess that's the best way I can sum this up. And I don't know how we're all going to do this, but eventually we're going to do it knowing that he's there every step of the way. And I mean, Mark, Steve, Ann, I feel like I've known you guys, you know, even Karen, like Mickey, I feel like I've known you guys my whole life. And he just, a lot of people say that there are people that change their lives. Leo saved my life. Because I was in a dark place. And he told me at 13, he goes, eventually, you're going to meet a woman, and the woman's going to change everything. And he goes, if you're smart, you'll learn she's right, you're wrong. And there you go. So he saved my life. I'm here 20 some odd years later, and hey, here we go.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who'd like to come up and speak? John, come on up, man. Would you like me to mic you?
Long time no see. It's been a while since I came to camp, and Leo and I own this camp. And we had the greatest time coming here every summer and every weekend that you can come to. And Leo had life, he had power, he had it all, and he spread it through for the entire camp. And now, so, Leo, I know I have so much more to say, but right now I can't say you were my friend for life, and next time I see you, it will be in heaven or hell. So, now, well, thank you, Leo. I love you, and every time I turn on the music on my stereo, on my computer, or in the car, I'm just dream up your name, and because I want you to hear it, and Leo had something that no one could touch, not even me, and I know him mostly for 58 years of my life. October 20th, 2019, it will be very hard for me because that's his birthday, and we'll be around to celebrate it, but I know in spirit, I know I'm being here, on October 20th, I would like to have everyone here, and first this time from New Zealand to buy a cake and some ice cream and light a candle for Leo on his birthday. Thank you very much.
Anybody else? Ready to have some food? One more.
Well, since everyone's being so loving and we're family here, let me get my jacket off so I don't get hot. And I'm a family of actors. It's just, this is affecting me because of Leo. I don't want you to think I'm nuts, but I'm going to tell you what happened last night at 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock in the morning, I heard a noise in the kitchen. I thought it was maybe the cat found a mouse that happened to come in, something. Went in there was nothing, but there was a light coming through the window. Almost like SOS or Morse code. What the heck? Do I go wake up my husband? He just had a hip operation. He's resting. I wanted to get here. I said, wait a minute, Leo. I looked at the computer. I swear I didn't leave it on, but it was on. Odd, maybe. Coincidence, maybe. I heard his voice in my head. So I sat down. I wrote something. I don't really know the significance. It means a lot to me, and I just felt I had to write it. So I'm going to read it and take it with a grain of salt, but this is for Leo. I met Leo at college, and we became friends instantly. My name really is Bambi, so you know he had a field day with that. He was witty, and we talked about everything imaginable comfortably. And we kept that relationship all these years. Leo was even in my wedding in 1988. I'm still 39, mind you all. I have people convinced. When he was in the nursing home a few months ago, I visited him a few times, quite a few times. I brought him Whole Foods chicken salad, because he told me to. And I did get him an Ian Anderson hat, because Jethro Tull was coming and he said he couldn't get there. So, connections here and there. I did go out of my way and we got him an autographed hat, Ian Anderson. We don't know where it went since. So hopefully it'll show up. It was embroidered, autographed, he loved it, put it on. So the last time I saw him, we did talk a lot. I brought my daughter Kendall there. She just turned 17. She's like a mini me, but 6 feet tall. I brought Kendall, and he had known about her, talked about her often. But then he realized, hey, you play 3 instruments, but you don't play the flute. I got something for you. Leo made Kendall stay with him a very lengthy time to play Jethro Tull songs and explain and everything, introduce all the greatness that he felt with Ian Anderson. And that Ian Anderson deserved everything, and that Kendall should become a female Ian Anderson. I had to leave the room. They were still going on 45 minutes later. My daughter was held captive, but she didn't mind. He was charming. He was so excited and passionate that day. And I will tell you, I won't go into facts, alone with me, he mentioned Violet a lot that day. He mentioned Mark, and he also mentioned Steve. He expressed concern about his cat. He mentioned his brother with sadness. He reminisced about his mother and his beloved dog Jamie, and I knew them well and we had awesome times. I asked Leo while we were together, I don't know why, I asked him about death and what he thought about death. And we laughed and we joked about it and we talked about heaven and the stairway to heaven and Catholic's idea of purgatory and the whole 9 yards. And then we wondered who would die first. Sorry, I'm shaking. Well, I guess you won, Leo, if you can call it that. You may think that I won, but his death actually made me the loser. I'm at a loss without him around. I pick up the phone to talk to him, and then I remember I can't do that anymore. So I talk to space, the final frontier. I talk to air. He was always accessible to me at any moment for any conversation. I took care of my parents the last 4 years on home hospice and lost both of them. My husband's a fireman and was in an accident and he needed a second hip replacement recently. There's a lot I've been through. And whenever I would tell him something, he'd say, so? But I knew where he was coming from because he had been through so much and he had so much strength. So whether it was a life or death situation in my life or a trivial joke I had to share, he would always laugh and just say, so, put on your big girl pants. And that's what I did. We always said we were going to write a book together. I guess we waited too long. But I had some ideas the other day and I jotted them down for a children's book. Maybe that'll be it. I guess in Leo's memory, I want to say, and I feel this was from him, please do and say all you need to while someone you love is alive. As some people mentioned, the years go by, we find other things to do. Get in touch with the past people. You know, I don't like all the modern technology, but Facebook does help you. You can find people, you can locate people. Even if it's just to put a little message in there, hi, I was thinking about you. Hi, remember when? Forgiveness in life is imperative. Leo made me realize that, and kindness is necessary, definitely a necessity. And music does make the world a better place, and it does set the mood, but it does not have to be Jethro Tull. I'm sorry, Leo. Thank you, Leo, for being in my life. But I am angry that he died so young, even though he didn't think he was going to make it that long. I mean, hell, if it was 88, it would have been too young for me, as far as I'm concerned. If I live, however long I live, I'm going to hold him in my heart, and I'm always going to remember the funny faces he made. And he always made me laugh, and he always did the lip quiver. I can't even do it right now. I probably am doing it without even wanting to. I just want to say, I'm glad everybody's here for him. I gotta stop shaking, and I didn't even have caffeine today. I love you, Leo. I'll miss you. You're always with me. And damn it, I'm gonna write that book one way or another. And maybe Kendall will take the flute. Thank you.
So, is there anybody else, or are we good?
Tell the quick story about when Leo headbutted.
So,
Can you tell that story?
yeah. So, Leo was the quintessential badass. And I mean that for real.
Look at the picture.
He's the Don. He'll make you a deal you can't understand. So, Leo gained 3 things that were huge in his life from his brother Greg. One was his very first album, Iron Maiden and Agata Devita. His first piece of vinyl. And that started him on the journey. Greg was an excellent football player from Manchester High School. And sparked that love of football that Leo had his entire life. Leo's brother is also a martial arts master. And in one of the classes, Karen was telling me that Leo, who was taking the class, dislocated his toe. And if anybody's ever dislocated part of your body, you know what pain is. So they were going to kill it and say, you know what, I guess you're good to go. Leo said, no, I want to continue. So Greg reset his toe manually, and they continued on with the class. Later in life, as much as we all love Leo, there's dark souls out walking amongst us. And one of them in particular attacked Leo. Local business owner in town got angry at Leo and jammed Leo in between a door and a door sill, and shoved the door up against him. Manny was talking earlier about he used to lift Leo up by the head. That's because Leo had no neck. It was a tree trunk that went from his ears to his shoulders. And he had the strength of 10 in his neck. Well, with pinpoint accuracy and focus, Leo sprung his way free of the door, headbutted this person who attacked him in the chest, and shattered all the ribs on the left side of him, left him lying on the floor of his business. And Leo left. Leo came to my house. He said, hey, this just happened to me. I'm going for my car. I'm going to go down there and I'm going to kick his everything. Leo said, no need. He said, if you're going to do anything at all, you might want to call him an ambulance. I left him there. He was a serious guy. And he wasn't a serious guy. He could laugh at everything. He could especially laugh at himself. So I would like to leave you some words from Leo. Not words he gave me while he was alive, but words that have come into my head in the many conversations we've had since he's gone. We sat down one time and we entered into a pact. Whoever went first, we're going to go visit the other one. so we can prove that we carry on. Leo visited me 2 weeks ago in my home, and I know it was him because of what he did. So I'd like to leave you with these thoughts from Leo. To boldly go forth and see places you haven't seen. To boldly go forward and do things you've always wanted to do. And to continue your mission, to look past perceptions, to look past appearances, and into a person's heart and into a person's soul, because that's where they are. And then finally, I'd like to thank a few people. I would like to thank all of you for coming here today. I'd like to thank Leo for the amazing legacy he left in life. I especially want to thank Mark for picking me up several times during this whole process, for Anne, for Ruth, Garapolo Spellman, who is so supportive. She couldn't be here today because she was ill, but she should have been here today because she's been a tremendous support to this whole process of remembering Leo. I'd like to thank Brian for all of the things he did as well. I'd like to thank Scott and Jill for making all of this happen down here. I would like to thank the Easter Seals for building this camp 43 years ago. I'd like to thank Oak Hill for taking it over 3 years ago and dumping a pile of cash in this place and bringing this land yacht back up to ship shape. This place has come a long way in the last 3 years, and we're so glad. And then finally, in the words of the esteemed Admiral Spock, live long and prosper. Thank you, everybody.